Are you struggling with negative emotions, anxiety, depression, a lack of focus, or maybe you're a high performer and you feel like this whole pandemic, coronavirus thing, you've lost your edge and you're looking how to get it back, but you're not sure exactly what the next steps are or what the best steps are? Well, you're in the right place because that is what we're going to cover today. I've got a great podcast for you. What is up, my friend? This is Ted Rice, your host, and you're listening to the Legendary Life Podcast. What we do on this show is we break down science-based information on how to lose fat, prevent disease, and live a longer, healthier, legendary life. But on Real Talk Fridays, today, in other words, we take a different approach. We have a real conversation about what's going on. And I do my best to share a story from my life, from one of my clients' lives, in the hopes to help you take your life to the next level. So if that's what you're into, then you are in the right place. Before we jump into today's conversation, I want to tell you what I'm doing. I have put together a podcast survey because you may have listened to the show and said, well, sometimes episodes are really relevant to me and other times they're not. What we want to do is we're working big time to create a winning podcast for you this year. We're working hard. I backed off on coaching clients. It's all about the podcast. I've got even more things in store for you, but I would love to hear from you because you will be helping yourself by helping me. So your input is important to me. The survey is easy to fill out. And listen, this isn't some silly way of getting your email address. We don't do that. The results are completely anonymous. You don't have to give me your name or your email or anything like that. And you can finish it in less than 3 minutes. So if you will go to legendarylifepodcast.com/survey and answer the questions, that would be a great help. Again, not just to us, but to you. So that is what I'm asking you for. Now let's jump into today. Now let me tell you something. Anxiety and me, we have a long relationship. I think it was in my teenage years that I figured out that I actually was anxious, awkwardly anxious, socially anxious. Wow, I used to get so nervous when I would do any type of speaking in front of a crowd. When I tell people that, when I'm on calls with them or when I do interviews or when I do talks, people get so surprised. They're like, I would have never figured that you have social anxiety. You come across as so socially savvy, so such a good speaker. And yeah, I am a decent speaker, because I've developed the skills, but it's not naturally who I am. It's not like, is that a microphone and a crowd? Well, let me take over. I've had to work very hard to overcome a lot of the triggersome, the sensitive nervous system, the fight or flight response that I have when I'm presented with things that make me feel a little on edge, a little challenged. And I know a lot of people are struggling right now. There's something called pandemic anxiety. So what I want to do in this episode is I want to tell you what I've done to beat my anxiety, or beat it back at least. I mean, I still get these bouts of anxiety every now and again, but I can help you with this. I have a lot of experience, not just helping myself, but helping other people with this as well. You may not like what I've got to say, though, because it involves work. It involves that cliche that we need to get uncomfortable to grow. Before we jump into the tactics, I want to tell you, I had my first panic attack in my early 30s. I was hanging out with my girlfriend at the time. She and I were hanging out and we had smoked some marijuana and we were doing what young attractive couples do, or young couples who are, people who are attracted to each other. And as we were kind of relaxing and talking, I felt like my heart started to increase in speed, even though I wasn't doing any exercise. And it started to get more and more intense, especially as I put my hand to my chest and I'm feeling my heart, and I'm like, my heart's beating like if I was running sprints, like running a race, except I'm not running. I'm not doing jiu-jitsu. I'm not doing martial arts. I am standing still, and that's freaking me out. That can't be good for my heart. My heart can't be that strong to keep taking this type of intensity without something really bad happening. So I had my girlfriend at the time drive me to the emergency room in Miami Beach. And let me tell you, when I got in there, I don't know what you think about Miami Beach or what you've heard, but these doctors there looked at me. I did not get a lot of respect for my symptoms, let's say. In fact, the doctor that came over was a bit older than me, a guy a bit older than me, but not much. He was young and in his residency, if I remember correctly. And he said, or I don't remember if he was in his residency. Anyway, he said, listen, he basically asked me, hey, did you do cocaine and Viagra? That's what he basically asked me. I'm like, no, that's not. I did smoke some marijuana, but I don't have any Viagra. I don't take Viagra and I don't do cocaine. Okay. Although in the past there have been some times, but it was never a thing for me. Anyway, I didn't explain that to him, but I'm just letting you know. He gave me a drug test anyway, I guess under the guise of just making sure that I was going to be okay. I took an EKG to check out my heart rhythms. They gave me a blood test to also assess if there were any enzymes that were detectable in my blood in case I've had a heart attack or I guess a stroke maybe as well, because there's some enzymes. I don't know a lot about it, but there are enzymes that you can detect if someone's had a myocardial infarction, which is the technical nerdy term for heart attack. So that was the first time I've been to the emergency room. It cost me, I think it was $5,000. I don't remember if I had insurance at the time or not, but I had to pay that back. And it wasn't the first time. I've been to the emergency room, let me see, 2 times, and it cost around $5, or I think the second time may have even cost more. They raise the prices on you. And why am I sharing this with you? Because I want you to know that I know what it's like to have extreme anxiety to the point where you feel like you're going to die. Like having anxiety to the point where you feel like your life is over. I've got that too. But what I'm trying to say is, look, I've joked about this, and this is a joke. I don't want to diminish anybody's anxiety experience or the symptoms that they struggle with. But I'm like, listen, if you haven't spent $10K in the emergency room for your panic attacks, well, don't talk to me about anxiety, right? Like I'm some expert at it. And I'm just joking about that. Although there is a bit of truth in that there are different levels to anxiety. There are different levels to anxiety. Some people suffer with social anxiety, which I do. Some people suffer, which is a lot of worrying. People suffer from panic attack disorder. I've had my share of panic attacks. And no matter what the situation is with anxiety, what your diagnosis with anxiety is, I believe that there is a 2-step path to taking back control of your life. And we're going to get to that today. So listen, I had to go through all the stuff that I shared and more. I was dealing with anxiety. When my dad passed away, I was really struggling. Or actually before that, when the whole quarantine happened, I got stuck in Medellin, Colombia. I was only going to be there for maybe a couple months, and then I was going to travel around South America. I was going to go to Santiago, Chile. I was going to Buenos Aires, Argentina. I was going to go have this amazing South American experience, going to go to Machu Picchu in Peru. But I got locked down in Colombia and stuck there, and I felt like my life was ending. And then I got through that, and my dad got sick, and then boom, more anxiety. And he ended up dying last year on October 3rd. And then I got COVID when I came to Brazil. And last week, I had a giant polyp removed from my colon. Hint, I almost had colon cancer, which I'm going to save that story for another time. In spite of all the health, all the supplements I've spent money on, all the clean, quote unquote, clean foods I've eaten, all the exercise I've done. And let me tell you, I'm here in Brazil right now, and I've struggled with some anxiety keeping me up at night, where I don't know if you've ever had this, but this is what happens to me. When my anxiety is really acting up, I do okay during the day. I'm fine during the day. I don't feel weird during the day, not usually. But then as the sun goes down and it starts to get close to bedtime, I start feeling my heart. And my heart doesn't beat fast. I've got a very, not very low resting heart rate, but I use an Oura ring to track my resting heart rate every morning. My heart rate's regularly in the low 40s and very rarely out of the 40s. But I feel this thumping, like the intensity is high. Like, I don't know, maybe my blood pressure is high or maybe it's low. I have no idea what's going on, but I feel this thumping and it keeps me up. And it's like, I feel like I drank a cup of coffee. And by the way, the coffee here in Brazil, it is strong. It's not as tasty. Sorry if there's any Brazilian friends listening, but it's not as tasty as Colombian coffee. Oh my gosh, the cappuccino at the Cappuccino Tradicional from Juan Valdez Cafe. It's like their Starbucks down there. Oh, it's so delicious. Here they don't have the same thing. They put a lot of sugar in their coffee and it is strong. Oh my gosh, it is strong. I'd have a grande cappuccino. Back in Colombia or even in Mexico, again, great coffee from Al Cacao Cafe in Playa del Carmen, Mexico. But here in Brazil, it's super strong. And it felt like I had a shot of Brazilian coffee. It's like my heart isn't racing, but it's like boom, 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 boom. And it kept me up and it was killing me. And so here are the two things that you must learn if you suffer from anxiety. Number one, you need techniques that calm your nervous system. Techniques or things that you do, we'll talk about some examples of this in a minute, but you need some techniques, some experiences to calm your nervous system. And then two, you need to do things that challenge you emotionally, that bring up your anxiety. You need to seek out the things that make you anxious and conquer them. Conquer is more of a kind of a, yeah, man, you got to conquer it. You don't have to conquer it, but you need to take steps in that direction if you want to get in control of your anxiety. And by the way, this isn't just me talking about this like, oh, okay, Ted, yeah, are you a psychologist? Do you have training on this? This actually comes from a type of therapy called cognitive behavioral therapy. Now, I was doing this long before I ever even heard of cognitive behavioral therapy. But what I'm sharing this with, or why I'm sharing this, is because this actually has scientific evidence on it. And that's really important for me. I hope it's important for you. It's cool to have like someone share their personal experience, but when we're looking for techniques, for strategies that help the largest amount of people, we really need to look at, if there is any, of course, some scientific evidence. What do we know about this? What can we say about what works for people? What's been tested? What's been found to work? What hasn't been found to work? And what I'm sharing with you here is something I've been doing for a long time, and it's backed by science, backed by research. So let's talk about the first one, because that's the easier thing to do. So first, you need things that calm you down. And more specifically, you need things that calm down your nervous system. Anxiety is, well, we're not going to talk about, there could be, why do we have anxiety? Well, some of us, it seems genetically, may have a tendency to be neurotic. Now, there is a test called a 5-factor personality test. And one of the 5 factors is neuroticism. And what scientists have kind of found out from doing research with twins, identical twins, is that there is some consistency in temperaments or personalities, or is the better term to use, with twins who've been separated at birth and who have very different upbringings, but they still have these tendencies. Now, of course, our childhood, our upbringing matters too. Maybe it was your parents. Maybe your parents, didn't do anything too over the top. They weren't abusive. They weren't super neglectful, but maybe you went through some traumatic experiences. These things can sensitize your nervous system, sensitize you to stress. People think I'm so resilient, and I have a very sensitive nervous system. Oh, and I get anxious so easily. I am a resilient person, but what I'm trying to say is it's not because I'm naturally resilient. It's because I've worked hard to develop the skills. I've put in the work in the things that I'm about to share with you here. So let's get into it. Number 1, you need to do things. You need to have things that are in your life that help you calm down. And what are examples of this? Meditation, or let's back up. Let's say deep breathing, deep diaphragmatic breathing, something everyone can do. Meditation, a little more tricky to do because there's some skill involved. You've got to learn some things with meditation. Also, playing a musical instrument. For those of you who are musicians, if you've ever sat down when you're feeling anxious and you've played your emotions out. I don't know if I've shared this before with you, but I studied music. I played in bands. I played in a jazz band. Any care to guess what instrument I played? No, not the drums and not guitar. I was a bass player. I played the upright bass and I played bass guitar. So I remember sitting there and just playing music and when I was feeling anxious. And then afterward, I felt so calm, so relaxed. It was a way for me to express my emotions. That's why music is so powerful. When we hear someone singing their heart out or playing their heart out on some instrument, whoa, wow. It can make the hair on your arms stand up. Now, those are some examples that involve skill, right? Spending time in nature is something you can do too, and doesn't involve skill. Getting a massage. I'm a huge fan of relaxing massages, not a huge fan of deep tissue massages. Story for another time. Acupuncture. Working with healers, even though I'm a very science-oriented person, I'll tell you what, here I am in Brazil. If you don't know about Brazil, there's a lot of spirituality in Brazil. What I would call true spirituality. A lot of places say they're spiritual or claim to be spiritual, but I believe there's a lot of what's called spiritual materialism. There's a lot of spirituality here. There's a lot of mixture between Catholicism, between the beliefs that the African slaves brought with them here. There's a lot of spiritual beliefs that the indigenous people of the area that eventually became known as Brazil had. And it's all mixed together in different forms for the Brazilian people. And I've been working with this one person who does energy healing. Now, I want to tell you something. I don't really believe in what people say happens when you do energy healing, but it works. After I do it, I feel more relaxed, and that's all that matters. So these are all things you can do. These are all things you can do. Spending time with family. If you're religious, spending more time at church or your mosque or your synagogue or, going to the Buddhist temple, whatever religion that you're a part of, those are all things that can help calm you down. And you need them in your life, especially if you struggle with anxiety. It's interesting. One of the things that I ask my clients, I'm like, what are you doing? Are you religious? Okay, you go to church, time to get back there. Okay, you're not religious? Well, guess what? You're going to have to, and I'll be honest with you, I'm not a religious person. I grew up Episcopalian, which is a form of Protestantism. It's like Catholicism light is the way it's been explained to me. I don't want to say I grew out of it, but I stopped connecting to it. So I've had to find other ways of having a spiritual experience, of finding meaning in life. Because I believe that atheism and nihilism, or nihilism, however you say it, it's not good for your health. Story for another time too. We got a lot of stories for future podcasts, and we'll be covering this stuff more. A lot of what we're talking about here, this is important for not just calming down anxiety, but for health overall. And I want to ask you right now, as I'm telling these stories and some of the things that I've used, what are the things that you use that calm you down? For so many of us, what do? We drink alcohol. We do, or other types of drugs. Yes, alcohol is a drug, folks. It just happens to be a legal one. People smoke cigarettes. People watch TV. People eat. What do you do to calm yourself down? Because there's things that we can do like meditation, acupuncture, massage, walk in nature, or walk on the treadmill even can help calm you down as long as you're not running and getting your heart rate up too intense. What do you do? Because if you say, oh, well, yeah, I don't really have a relaxation/recovery practice, well, that's a problem, especially in Western society, especially like a Western country like America. Whoa. I remember all the times I was struggling back in Colombia, like I shared with you, with the pandemic and wondering what was going to happen to my business, how I felt like my life was over. Even when my business started doing well financially during the quarantine, I still was struggling. I remember, and maybe you're one of these clients who were with me during that time. I remember signing up clients, doing all these breakthrough calls. Clients joined my group, my coaching group. They hired me one-on-one. And after that, I went and cried because I felt like the win was so hollow, right? I just made money. It's great. Except, you know what? I'm stuck in a room in a foreign country. I can't do anything. And by the way, one thing I'll add to recovery practice, I felt so bad after making money. I know I should be grateful, right? But that's how I felt. I'm just being honest. And one of the things that I did was like, you know what? I'm going to go down to that Juan Valdez Cafe, which is so amazing. I bought all the front desk staff at the building I was staying in. I bought them all coffee, and I bought them all Colombian pastries. And I just handed them a big box. I said, para todos, for everyone, right? And walked away. And I was like, I felt like I did something good with my life because, by the way, Colombia, it's people are underpaid there. And they did a great job at our building of not just keeping security, but talking with people. There were a lot of nice people there in Colombia. I've got so many great things to say about my experience in Poblado, which is a neighborhood in Medellin, Colombia. So I want to ask you, what are those things that you do that help calm you down? Because you need this in your life if you struggle with anxiety. If you're struggling with anxiety right now, I guarantee you, one of your issues is that, oh, well, I go and crush it in the gym. Oh, well, I really crush it at work. Crush it, beast mode, beast mode, beast mode. But here's the thing. You need to have, I forget the guy's name who coined this, but you need to master least mode, not just beast mode. You can work yourself to the bone. You can work out till your kneecaps are about to pop off in the gym, squatting weight, running, doing high intensity interval training. Maybe you do some, or maybe you're like me, you do some martial arts, or maybe some extreme sports like skiing. But what do you do to calm down? Because if you don't have that, you need that in your life. I used to tell all my clients that, my personal training clients that, but now I'm an evangelist for recovery and including things that calm down your nervous system. We all need that. And plus, you get better results from exercise because you recover better. Oof. So I want to ask you, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are your skills that you have? What are your strategies to recover, what do you do? And it really needs to make you feel relaxed here. It can be a bath. It can be, I don't know, whatever it is, going to the spa. It can be those things. But I want to say this too. Our world just changed, and you may not be able to go and get a massage. Now, I'm getting massages every week. Brazil happens to be a place that's open. However, wherever you are, and if you've had some of the things taken away from you that you usually use, well, you've got to replace those with something. And I want you right now to think about, what can I replace those other things that I used to do with? And I want you to stay open. Maybe I said energy healing and you're like, never doing that. Well, guess what? You should do it. Oh, but I don't believe in it. I don't care. It's not about whether you believe in something or not. It's about the effects. And you don't know till you try it. One of the worst things that smart people do, and my dad used to be so guilty of this, they figure out 100 reasons why something won't work for them. And then when you ask them, well, have you ever experienced it? And they say, well, no. It's like, well, then you don't know anything. So shut up and try it and then talk to me after. But your brain is amazing, but it's not powerful enough to tell me the experience of something that you've never had, right? I can't say, okay, well, this is how you go ride a bike. This is how you drive a car. This is how you give a speech. No, this is how you run a business. This is how you manage a team of people. This is how you raise children. This is how you keep your relationship healthy. This is how you keep your wife or husband happy, your girlfriend or boyfriend. You need the experience, and that's how we learn. So challenge yourself and find something that works. Try a lot of different things. That is exactly what I did. I didn't believe in acupuncture, but I was desperate. I was having trouble sleeping at night. I was almost on the verge of I was in that contemplative stage of suicide when I had really bad anxiety. I couldn't sleep at night. I had those. Whenever you start to doze off, let me know if you've ever had this before. Whenever you start to doze off, you're like, oh, I'm falling asleep. Right? You start twitching. Has that ever happened to you? That's called a hypnic jerk. There's actually a name for it. And if you read about them, what you'll read is, oh, doctors don't know why that happens. Well, I'll tell you why I think it happens. Your nervous system is on edge. You are on edge. And you've got to find a way to calm it down if you want to bring yourself back to balance, to bring yourself back to yourself, to that high performance, amazing person that you are. So that's one side of things. It's tactics, techniques to calm your nervous system down. And let me tell you, one of the other things I've talked about, my Oura Ring. If you don't know what that is, Google Oura Ring, O-U-R-A ring. It's a ring you wear. They say it's a sleep tracker, but it tracks other things as well. One of the things that it helps you do, and I don't get paid for saying this, by the way, although I'd be happy to. I had a relationship with Oura, but now it's over. Would love to reconnect with them again, but they've changed a lot as a company and took away our relationship, but I still preach to them, and I have my clients get Oura Rings because it's so amazing. And by the way, there are some issues with the Oura Ring. It doesn't tell you, it's not 100% accurate, or it doesn't tell you, you need to gain, again, some experience with how to work with it. But one of the things it does is when I do a massage or an acupuncture session or meditation or a healing, one of the energy healing sessions, one thing it does, it detects my resting heart rate, and it shows, you've rested for 57 minutes and your heart rate was this, and your HRV, which I'm not going to talk about now, but it's called heart rate. It's HRV stands for heart rate variability. It was this. So it tells me what my resting heart rate is, tells me how long I've rested. And I'll tell you one thing I've learned, sitting there and watching TV or just laying in bed and scrolling on my phone, it doesn't show up as rest on the Oura Ring. It doesn't calm me down. I don't know if it hypes me up or just keeps me at neutral where I am, but it doesn't calm me down. And the Oura Ring has been so invaluable in helping me decide what works for me here. And meditation, super powerful. I drop my resting heart rate. It shows up as rest. I increase my heart rate variability, which is a good thing. That's the good way. Increase the the heart rate variability. Same thing happens with acupuncture. Same thing happens with my energy healing sessions. Same thing happens with my massage sessions. Now let's talk about the other side to this. Back to that cliche, life happens outside your comfort zone, or, all the great things happen outside your comfort zone. And we pay lip service to that. But then whenever we start to feel, the heart rate start to increase because the adrenaline starts pumping from the adrenal medullas on top of our kidneys, we back out. We say no. We say, I feel a little uncomfortable. Maybe it's speaking up at a meeting. Maybe it's having a tough conversation with an employee or a coworker or a business partner, or with your loved one or with your children. And you're like, should I do it? Should I do it? Oh, no, I'm not going to do it. Have you ever done that? Have you ever felt like you had to have a conversation with someone, but then you started feeling so nervous about having it that you said, I'm not going to do that right now. I can't handle what's coming up for me right now. I'm just going to put it off. And then you start to feel it build up. It's like holding a beach ball under the water. You're like, there's no beach ball here, nothing to see here, but your arm's starting to get tired because beach balls are big and it's hard to keep it under the water. And what happens? It ends up exploding as maybe an argument online with someone, maybe an argument with your partner, maybe an argument with your business partner, maybe an argument with your boss or your employee, or it ends up coming out no matter what. Or for those of us who don't have that tendency to step up with anger, we shrink back in fear. I'm not sure what's worse. At least I'm like, I used to be the angry guy. I'll let the anger out. I'm like, I feel it building up, and I emote with anger. But I'm sure I've done the other thing too. So what I'm saying is, how do we get to the point where we're not feeling that way? We're not so triggered. Or let's say that you are supposed to give a speech or a presentation, and you start to feel, the presentation's happening. I don't want to do it. And maybe you get called on during a meeting and you don't want to talk. And what I want to tell you is this. Instead of feeling, so let's talk about this first. There are two types of fear: irrational fear and rational fear. Okay, this isn't super scientific here. It's just the way I like to think of it. What's irrational fear? It's like, hey, I'm flying in an airplane and someone's asking me to jump out of it with no parachute on. That's rational fear. Because that's a dumb thing to do. You know how it's going to end with you going splat at the bottom. Same thing when you walk up to the edge of, say, I was hiking in some of the mountains in Colombia, and I get close to the edge and look down and be like, and I started feeling the fear. Why? What is that fear for? It's like, hey, idiot, stay away from the edge. If you slip and fall, you might end up dead, or even worse, wishing you were dead. So that's rational fear. It protects you. But most of us, we're not in situations where that comes up a lot, at least. We're more in situations like, I have to have that conversation with my loved one. And when I start thinking about it, it brings up a lot of anxiety for me. To really kill it at work, to crush it at work, I've got to rock that, not that in-person presentation, but now that Zoom presentation, right? Or maybe some of you are back to work and doing that. You got to rock that presentation. Maybe some of you are like me. I don't know if I've ever shared this, but I was bullied. Not so much in high school. I developed a bit of an infamous reputation there. But in junior high, I was bullied. I was beat on. I was jumped by groups of people. One of them could have kicked my ass at the time. I was not a tough or strong guy, but I had 2, 3, 4, or even 5 people trying to beat me up, or not be trying to, they were beating me up, right? And I have a history of physical and emotional abuse with my biological mother, who is mentally ill. I'm not a person that should have ever, I was deathly afraid of getting into a fight and getting hurt. Again, probably started with that experience with my mom. Definitely started there. But I went on to become a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu champion. I'm no world champion, but I've won more competitions than I've lost. And that was a time when it was hard to compete with those guys, because you were competing with these Brazilian dudes who were basically born on tatami mats. And I got into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because I was afraid of getting hurt. I was afraid of fighting. And I'll tell you, so many people know me afterward, and they're like, "Oh man, you're such a badass." It's like, yeah, but you didn't see when I was a white belt. And I didn't want to do any competitions. I was deathly afraid of getting hurt in a competition. And also it was part rational and part irrational. The rational part was like, hey, if I get hurt during in this jiu-jitsu competition, I work as a personal trainer. My clients aren't going to like it when I can't spot them on the bench press or help them change their weights because I broke a bone or snapped a joint or something, or hurt my neck or something. And I already had some injuries I was dealing with. And the irrational fear is just like, oh man, I got to face that fear that little boy had when his mother abused him. I got to face that fear that teenage version of me had, or preteen version of me had, when he got bullied at school. I had to face that fear. But guess what? Because I stepped up and did that, it's changed my whole life. So many of us, and I want to say this too, because we're in a place in American society, this is happening in Canada, the UK, and Australia, and happening in other places too, just naming the places I know, of course. But in America, we have a shift happening, and we all see it. Hey, are you bullying people? Are you talking about, are you talking about people or minorities, or like either ethnic minorities, or are you talking about people who have different genders or transgendered or have different, sexual orientations? Well, hey, if you bully them, well, we're going to bully you now. And we're very concerned about being offended, and we're very concerned about bullying. And we're to the point where if someone does some of that, a whole mob jumps on them and it may even try to get them canceled or try to get them fired from their job. Now, I want to tell you something. If I were the preteen that I was, getting bullied, getting picked on, not popular, one of the outcasts, if I would have been, if this movement would have been happening while I was in junior high, during all the tough times that I had, I would have been all about it. It's like, hell yeah, stop bullying me. You should get kicked out of school or have your life ruined. I don't know, but you deserve to be, hurt in some way because of this negative behavior you're having. Now, I agree, people who are bullies, we're not going to talk about that. But what I want to share with you is what you can do, what the perspective is, because now I don't think the same. Now, I agree, people need to stop doing that. But the reality of our world is that we have these people who are putting pressure on us in ways, or bullying, or online bullying, and not giving us the respect that we may be due. And yeah, society's changing, but at the same time, I don't want you to wait for society to get to the point where we're not doing that anymore. I think society changes too slow. I think it progresses too slow for that. So what I would like you to do is to step up and to think about the things that challenge you emotionally. Is it fighting, right? I'll tell you, I listened to a great book called The Body Keeps the Score. I forget, the author's name is escaping me right now, but it's on post-traumatic stress. And he talks about how some of the sexual assault survivors, some of the female sexual assault survivors, went on to do martial arts, and how it helped them so much because they were afraid of physical confrontation. Is that something you can relate to? And again, I share this quote, or I was sharing it a lot, I guess maybe a year ago, 2 years ago, I don't remember, but and I shared it recently. But that cave that you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek. It's a quote by the American mythologist Joseph Campbell, guy who helped inspire Star Wars, whether you are a Star Wars person or not, had a huge impact on our culture, the storytelling. And why is this important? Because I want to share another story. I talked about how I became this, and I was this guy who was afraid of physical confrontation. I felt like, oh, please don't hurt me. Please don't, I'll give you what you want. Just don't hurt me. Don't beat me up. Don't bully me. Don't get in my face. Don't cause me more stress, because I already had a tough life, But the thing is, I was able to work through that stuff to get to the point where I'm a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I do Muay Thai. I'm not really, great at Muay Thai, but Jiu-Jitsu, I've got I wouldn't hang with a good purple belt right now, but I still got my skills, is what I'm trying to say. You wouldn't want to mess around with me on the street, trying to take my lunch money. You might get tossed or choked unconscious, or one of your joints twisted in the wrong direction, in a direction God never intended to. Okay, and I'm not promoting violence here. I'm just saying I'm confident to defend myself. But there's another side to this, because as I got more and more confident doing jiu-jitsu and being able to defend myself physically, and going on to not just competing in jiu-jitsu and winning a bunch of medals, including a Florida State championship, I also began teaching jiu-jitsu. Really love that. But at the same time, and I was training with MMA guys. I've trained with some big name MMA people, at least big name MMA people from the past, like the Minotauro brothers. Who else? Several, I can't even think right now. I met Helio Gracie. But even while I was this jiu-jitsu, quote unquote, badass, right? Not really, because there's so many other people way better than me. But at the same time, I'm this guy who's very confident physically in defending myself. I was deathly afraid of public speaking. And even though I was this accomplished, jiu-jitsu guy and trained with MMA guys, no problem. Oh, this is a pro MMA fighter. Yeah, no problem. Let's roll. And be able to hang with them, not just get beat up, but hang with them. I was deathly afraid of public speaking. And I knew in my heart, here's the other thing, I knew in my heart, it was the next challenge. It was the cave that I was so afraid to go in. But I knew in my heart, not only was it a place that I was feeling challenged and afraid to tackle, I was also realizing that, hey, if I really want to go out there, if I want to be a personal trainer who ends up giving seminars, or if I want to do interviews, or if I want to, what became this podcast, I knew it was the key to business success. And certainly it has been. Most of my coaching clients have come from this podcast. And it was only because that I showed up and stood up to my fear, showed up and put in the repetitions and consistently challenged myself. I joined Toastmasters. I did improv acting classes. I've done speaking courses. I've done a number of talks. Each one of those talks were challenges for me. Now it's not a speaking course. Now it's not an improv acting course. It's a group of people you've never met, and you're going to go, it's a couple hundred people, and you're going to go up there and you're going to give your talk. Hopefully they don't throw tomatoes at you. Right? Of course, it never happens. But if I wouldn't have faced my fears, and the two big ones for me, again, I was abused as a child. I was bullied in junior high. If I wouldn't have faced my fear there and also faced my fear of public speaking, I would not have what I have today. I've got an amazing life, even with all the tragedy, even with all the challenges. Even during this pandemic, I have an amazing life. I've lived in like 7 different countries. I've seen so much of the world. I never thought I would ever end up in Hong Kong or Singapore or Bali. I thought only rich elites, right, ended up in Bali. But there I was. I didn't stay there for a few days or even a week or even 2 weeks. I lived there for a couple months. I have what I have because I stepped up and faced these challenges. And what I want to say to you is if you have success in your life, you have stepped up and faced challenges too, but we all have more challenges. The work never ends for us, human beings, that is. It never ends. We have more challenges. What are you afraid of right now? And again, it's not like, well, yeah, I wouldn't want to, go diving with a great white shark after they pour a bucket of fish guts in the water. That's a rational fear. But I can, and this is something that I did, I can go diving with bull sharks in Playa del Carmen, Mexico. And I can, go diving in a cave in Playa del Carmen, Mexico. Oh gosh, that I actually have. People think the bull shark dive was scary. No, it's the cave dives that people freak out on. And not caves, they're cavern dives. So those are the things that you freak out on. The bull sharks are like big fish. So what are you afraid of? What is an irrational fear that you're struggling with? Because if you're suffering from anxiety, if you're not feeling like you have your edge, and if you're looking to get it back, you must step up and face your fears. And again, like I said earlier, this isn't just me talking. There's research backing this up from cognitive behavioral therapy. In fact, what I'm telling you to do is something called systematic desensitization. So, for example, if you have a fear of, like I did, of fighting, of protecting yourself or standing up for yourself physically, maybe going to a bar in Bangkok, they have these, by the way, and they got these bars where they have these fights going on. And if you're a drunk idiot, you can step in and fight another drunk idiot. Like maybe that isn't the best place to start. Maybe that's a bit too much. But can you go to a martial arts class? Can you go to a jiu-jitsu class or a boxing class or a Krav Maga class? Now, maybe you can't right now because of the quarantine, but it is something that you can at least put on your list if that's a fear that resonates with you. And on the other example, public speaking, maybe if you have a fear of public speaking, which is one of I don't know if this statistic is true, but what we've all heard it, right? Oh, more people fear public speaking than they do death. I don't think that's really true, but even if the reporting is true, that's what people feel like. I'm sure if you said, hey, I've got a gun to your head now. Are you going to give the speech or are you going to die right here? I'm sure most of us would be like, oh, okay, I'll get up there and give the speech, right? But either way, it's something that so many of us have. So maybe stepping on stage with 1,000 people in the crowd isn't the way to break you in or to face your fears. Rather, maybe it is starting to say hi to people in the morning on your way to work. If you happen to be going to work, I don't know. We're in such a weird time. I don't know what you're doing. Or maybe speaking up or asking a question or even making a statement or a recommendation during one of your Zoom meetings. I don't know what your situation is, but you do. What is something you can do? What is that cave you fear to enter? And I want to remind you of this. This is something we've all done. We've all found ways of calming ourselves down, maybe in our mother's arms or our father's, whatever, or a girlfriend, boyfriend, wife, husband, whatever. We've all found ways of calming ourselves down. I just want you to be aware of it and to know what works for you, what really moves the needle in the direction to calm down your anxiety. And we've all faced our fears. In some cases, I remember I had a client. My client's a Peruvian gentleman and a Panamanian woman. Trained their kids, and one of her daughter in her high school was forced to get up and give talks. And guess what? It helped her develop. She would have never done it on her own. But because she was in school, because school forces you to do things, she went up and did it. And that's the case with so many of us. Our parents force us to get back on the bike when we're learning to ride a bicycle after we fall off. And they say, get back on the bike. Maybe not force us, but they encourage us. But then as we grow up, we have this myth that we're adults now. And, I'm an adult. I just, I magically have my stuff together because I'm a certain age and because I have a college degree and because I have a job or a business. No, you don't. You don't have anybody in your corner forcing you to do stuff. Or if you do, awesome. But so many of us don't. And so many of us are just big kids, still not wanting to grow up. And I would even argue that the people among us that do face their fears without someone nudging them to do it, those are people that really have their shit together. Maybe they had a good childhood. Maybe they didn't. I don't know. But something about them, they figured it out. But so many of us, and I fall into this group, I had to be forced or at least strongly encouraged to go do those things, to face my fears. And so if you're not, so I want to say this too. Some people, they don't have the resources to invest in themselves. They don't have the resources to hire a coach or pay for massages or acupuncture sessions or whatever it is. And if that's the case, Toastmasters is really affordable. And if you're super tight, one of my secret techniques that I did when I was broke, because I've been broke most of my life. I just started having the financial success that, I want to say that I feel like I deserved. Only in the past few years. But most of my life I was broke. I want you, this is my bonus tip here. I want you to brainwash yourself for success. So many of us, we're on social media. We don't get a lot from it. Maybe it just, lights you up a little bit. Maybe not. For most of us, it just triggers us or is a way of procrastinating. Brainwash yourself for success. Go back to my episodes like Feeling Pandemic Guilt, You're Not Alone. That's my Real Talk Friday 64. Or Real Talk Friday 70. I want to reconnect to the life I was meant to live. That's another good one. Or 432, How to Stay Active and Healthy During the COVID-19 Pandemic. But if your problem isn't money, and it's that you can't take action even though you listen to not just this podcast, but to many others, I'll tell you what I told my dad. You need professional help. You need coaching or you need therapy. If you're really in a bad place, you need therapy. If you're just kind of in a bad place, you can't get yourself to do something, but you feel so motivated by someone like me, then maybe coaching will do it for you. But if you're really in a bad place, therapy. There are a few therapy apps that offer different plans that can fit your budget. I signed up to Talkspace. I'll list them in the show notes for you. And lastly, I want to leave you with this. Take action today. Stop procrastinating. Stop using your precious time talking about Biden, vaccines, COVID, Trump, the third or fourth wave. Please, just please focus on what you can control. Focus on your well-being. Focus on your mental health. You are worth it. And if you're having a hard time doing it for yourself, then please do it for your family and loved ones. Don't let them down. You need to be strong for them. You need to lead by example, not by what you say. Nobody listens to what you say. They look at you, they see what you do. That's the impact you have on people. Be that person that they're expecting you to be. And use these techniques to help you have your me time. Everything I said here is going back to self-care basics. And that's what we need now. Nothing fancy, no BS biohack or miracle supplement. Those won't solve your problems. We need to make sure that we survive and hopefully thrive in this stressful period so that we will look back in 5 or 10 years, we're proud of ourselves. We're happy about what we did, how we stepped up, what we went through. We're all going through this together. So please, what's some action that you can take now? So that's it for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope that you'll take action on what I said this weekend. So even if it's a struggle at first, you will start to feel better. I promise you. You will start to feel more hopeful for the future and certain that you're doing your part. You're not arguing online, pretending that you're making a difference. You're not complaining about what's wrong with the world. Guess what? The world's a mess. It always has been. And we're really far away from having that ideal world. And it's not going to happen in your lifetime. But you can step up and help humanity inch just a little bit closer to it. All right? That's what I want to leave you with. Love you. Wishing you the best. Have a great weekend. And I'll see you on our next Monday episode where we're going to talk about saturated fat, good or bad, everything you need to know about the truth about fat. Such a hot topic. So many people are talking about. So that's what we do, folks, is we cover something scientific on Mondays, and the Real Talk Fridays, we have conversations like this. Hope you enjoyed it. Love you lots. Speak to you soon.